Okay. Can anybody see Chief?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Thank you very much.
That's also that it's recording.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, welcome everyone to the 20th NSTHA Global Women's Forum, and Chief will begin the exercises.
Okay, you know how it goes. I'm going to do the bump first. And approximately 12 inches apart. Start to feel that energy building. Anyone not feeling it? Okay, good.
I'm not Chief, it's Nelly.
Okay, you need a little bit more. There we go. I can feel it growing.
I feel it now.
Okay, terrific. All right. So it's been building, so you should start to feel an increase in the vibration and even some heat. I'm feeling more heat for some reason today between my hands. So anyone not feeling this increase, I'm increasing it. Okay, terrific. All right. So we're going to do the exercise first, bringing up all of that light energy and pushing with density that's sitting on the surface, closer to the surface. We're going to do 5. 1. 2. 3. 4. And 5. Now we're going to contain. Let's come up. Also contain the forum and your space. Starting. And 5 of these as well. Well, actually, we usually do 3, right?
Whatever you think is.
I think 5 this time.
Okay.
Feel 5. Okay. 1. 2. 3. 4. 5. Good. A little few in there. Something else. And now I'm going to push the containment outward. I should say I'll build a separate one. Push outward. Clear your space. Clear your whole area. Some of you like to clear your whole house. That's good. Starting 1. 2. 3. And 4. Okay, very good. I can feel that energy. Terrific. Okay, we're going to get started. Mrs.A is going to start off.
Yes, I'm going to show them the image of the original writer of The Matrix.
Yeah. So everyone, they can hear you. You're right up on that.
Yes, I'm really close. Thank you. So, if those of you can see this is a book actually written by Sophia Stewart, and she has this paperback book available on Amazon. It's called The Mother of the Matrix, the Sophia Stewart story. So, should I read the synopsis a little bit?
Yeah. First, I don't know. There are some who understand that the Wachowski brothers are not the writers of that script. They literally stole it. And there was a big court battle, which they will cover in the synopsis. And so, literally, the script was written by someone else, and it was stolen. So you can read the synopsis, and then I can go into more detail.
Okay. In this book, Anil Zulu takes the reader behind the scenes of a case that will forever go down as one of the biggest thefts in film history. In the early 80s, Sophia Stewart wrote a copyrighted original epic science fiction book, and the script was called The Third Eye Matrix. That body of work was later adapted to the screen as the Matrix and Terminator movie series and trilogy. These movies went on to win 4 Oscars, many awards, and billions of dollars, but the true author and creator was hidden from the masses until ABC News broke the story on October 17, 2003. In her second case in the Utah federal court, Stewart won $3.5 billion in liens and almost $500,000 in attorney fees against the California defendants and her former lawyers on September 25, 2014. These rulings by federal judge Evelyn J. Fuse D. Benson and the validations of the FBI and the DOJ established Stewart as the creator and owner of the Matrix and the Terminator movie franchises.
Okay, so literally, now as far as, I didn't realize that there was actually a book written until we started to do research and just, on the Matrix, because we need to bone ourselves up. Because I've watched it more than a few times over the last, I'd say 21 years, I guess now that it's been out. And I knew her story, but I didn't know there was a book about it. And I just got pieces of information from other individuals who were interested in her story. Now, someone had told me that, I don't know if it was an interview or something with her, they said, how did she come up with the story? And she said she was told what to write. So for me, I found that to be something having to do with light beings, or whatever you want to call them, who actually gave that information. She channeled it out, in writing. So for starters, there are a lot of individuals who think that, the Matrix is some kind of a blueprint or template or Bible for what's going on here. In reality, if you think that's what it is, you're wrong. It's not. It's literally a sample, or I would say just something that gives you an awareness of what this realm is about. So, folks get to the point where there's Morpheus, you're a Morpheus, or you're the Oracle, or, well, they don't even go you, or they don't even know who they are. Some individuals think that they are, but a number of folks think that they are the Neo character waiting for the Morpheus to come along, or or the Oracle or whatever, to, put them in their rightful place. So one of the things I found actually watching the movie again, just in the last couple of days, that the more information that comes through, the more holes I see in the movie. But there are key phrases and key things in the movie that they couldn't squash. So the reality of the matter, they were stealing things from this woman for quite a while. She was never going to get the kind of backing that the Wachowski brothers got, who are now, from what I understand from one of the clients, are the Wachowski sisters, because they had a sex change. And I don't know what the hell that's about. Maybe their contract said that they had to change their sex at some point in time. I don't know what they look like as women, but anyway, that's something that's going on that's kind of weird too, to tell you the truth. But where was I missing?
Chief, I can read one of the key phrases that they could not, they couldn't dampen the power of it.
Well, there's a number of key phrases actually,
Yeah.
but they did tack some things on to some of those phrases and made it kind of, Disney-like.
Yes.
And we'll point them out. And even if we feel inclined, we might muscle test it just, to solidify that in your minds about the reality of the matter, that this is not a Bible or a template, but this is about triggering an awareness of what this realm really is. So you can read
Go
that.
ahead. Okay. All right. So here we go. So it has here that the Matrix is everywhere. It's all around us, even now in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. The truth that you are a slave. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage, born into a prison you cannot smell or taste or touch, a prison for your mind. So this is just one of the really, I'd say, epic.
Yeah, I would say that's, that's pure,
Pure.
information
Yes.
that she channeled. And, they had to stick with a whole lot of what she wrote, or else the movie would have just sucked. But they did some certain things where even when I was watching it for the first time, or maybe the second time, it was just like, some of this seems a little disjointed, but whatever it is about that movie, whatever it was something that's very, like, triggering, so something that triggered something in the subconscious. And that's why so many people are just, are so into this movie, but not realizing that it is not a pure representation of the information that was given to Sophia Stewart. Okay, so if we want, we can just get started with the questions about the movie.
Okay.
So just, so to keep that in mind, the answers will reflect what we've just told you.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Mimosa here. Do we know how much, like how different the movie from the original script or book is? Like how much did the brothers change about it? Like did
No,
they
because
take the script and completely changed
yeah,
it?
can you repeat that again? Sorry, that last part.
Like I was wondering if they just took the whole script and completely changed it, or if they, like how much truth did they left in it?
So they didn't completely change it, or else it wouldn't have been as effective as it is.
The first one.
Yeah,
But
the first one.
others-
Don't confuse the sequels with the first one. And I've been saying this for years. The first one is the real one. I could tell even before I knew that Sophia Stewart was robbed of her script, that the sequels were damage control. So do not, and we're going to have some questions we'll answer them anyway. I may just repeat it. Do not confuse the other sequels with the original. She had nothing to do with those. So anyone trying to put those in, you're just walking around in circles, and they're succeeding in confusing you. The first one is the only one. The other ones are just Hollywood entertainment. And that's all they are. No depth to them. I don't give a shit if they, some little line or some little catchphrase or something like that. There's catchphrases going all over the place in this world. But what she wrote and what she channeled in was the most original information that's ever been in any movie I have ever seen in my life. So they couldn't get rid of everything, or else they would have had a crappy movie. Just another Hollywood action movie with a lot of CGI, excuse me. Now, what I would say is that great cinematography. And they would never have given this woman, this black woman, the kind of budget that they gave these two white guys to make that movie. So I would say that black beings play a mean game of chess. So it got out, and that was the important thing. Even, the fact that they had to allow it to be stolen for that to get out. So it did more good than damage. But I just want you to understand that the whole movie is not the whole script. And I believe that there were issues having to do with her not being able, I think she wrote the book maybe in 2014 or something. But I recall 2014? Anyway, that, there are cases that are settled, and the person who is brought the suit against these individuals, part of the stipulation a lot of times is that you can't talk about the case. You can't even say that you won the case, or else you end up with less cash.
She wrote it a lot earlier than that because ABC broke the news story.
No, but she wrote the book after that time, I believe.
Oh, the book?
Yeah, this said something about 2014 when you were reading it.
This one says
the other day.
June 11, 2018.
2018. Okay, so the book was written in 2018. Yeah, so that was a couple years ago, and no wonder I didn't know about it, because by that time, all that ruckus around the theft of the script had kind of died down a bit. And so every so often someone will come and they talk about the Matrix, and you know, when people feel like they're I would say being more evolved or whatever, if I mention the Matrix, they go, oh yes, you know, that was the thing, you know. So they couldn't get rid of all of it. And the Wachowski brothers were pretty clever. I remember when I bought the DVD, you know, a couple decades ago, they talked about how they got the money to finish the movie. The sample that they did was the first scene with Trinity in the room, and the cops coming in to try to capture her, and she's running along the wall and everything. And these executives were like, "Whoa, that's some mind-blowing, you know, action, man, and so on and so forth. I think this will make a lot of money." So they dug into their pockets and threw money at these guys. And then when they did the rest of the movie, those pivotal lines showed up. So they couldn't, you know, it's like money is God for these guys. So we can't just like, you know, just get rid of it. It's already out there. But we can make these sequels. Just muddy the waters. So anyway, Mrs.A, we were.
Muscle testing from the muscle.
Yeah, one muscle test as far as like, no, I'm not crazy about percentages and stuff, even though I do use them because that's where the mind is in this realm. But let's say, would say most of the movie is.
The first movie,
The first movie. When I'm talking about the Matrix, forget about the sequels. I'm not talking about any of those, except for questions that people have that try to relate the sequel to the original movie. So, when I say most of her script was used, yes. But they put little things in there to make it, you know, in other words, to try to change it a little bit. Usually that's what happens when there's that kind of theft, even when people are just stealing stories or anything else, or even stealing designs, they have to change it a little bit. And hopefully they feel that they hopefully changed it enough to where, you know, the originator of whatever it is won't come after them for it. So I would say most of the movie reflects what she had written. Because if it hadn't, it wouldn't have flown the way that it flew. Okay? All right, so we're going to, let's say anyone have, is that good, Mimosa? Or are you?
Yes, thank you. That's great.
Okay, just feel free if you feel, you know, that even comes up where you feel like you need more clarity, and that goes with everyone. If you feel that you need more clarity on anything that I'm talking about, just feel free. You know, that's how it works. Just, you know, interject even when I'm, you know, when I'm talking about certain things. Don't worry about it. Sometimes it looks like I lose my place, but I always get back to where I need to go. Okay, so.
and also Chief will be covering. We went through the movie, and Chief looked at all the holes in it. So he'll be talking about all the holes. So you won't have to worry about what percent is real and what is not.
Yeah, Mrs.A made a note because I'm not going to remember them all off the top of my head. So.
Yeah. Okay, so should we start in just the questions, or go into like what was the holes in the movie?
No, we can go with the questions, and then with the questions, I can show the holes probably through answering a number of the questions.
Okay.
And thank you, everyone, for sending all these questions. This one really inspired a lot of you. Got a lot of really interesting and good questions.
Okay. What's the difference between The Matrix and Marvel superhero movies?
Well, again, the difference is like Sophia Stewart had nothing to do with those. But in reality, those are just fantasy concepts. And if, you know, I try to keep my past social and political views out of these things, but it's like who and what they choose to be most powerful in all this, it reflects what the system wants to show. One of the things that was very, very cool, even though the movie with Black Panther, which any of you remember that review, I pretty much exposed what the hell was going on in that one, and apparently it was so effective that to this day I still can't boost that forum. That's the only forum that Facebook refuses to allow me to boost. and that had to do with exposing what the system was trying to do in that movie. So the Marvel films, system movies. The Matrix was light being extremely clever and slipping in a trigger in the middle of all this nonsense. So I don't know what else, as far as like with differences I can say about these superhero movies.
Well, just to give you guys an idea, in the Marvel movies, they have the Power Stones, and within the Power Stones, they have each a different name. The Soul Stone and all of this, and each one of these stones, if you look at the definitions of these stones, you can see how density is throughout all of it. So, for example, it says the space gem allows the user to exist in any or all locations, move any objects anywhere throughout reality, and warp or rearrange space at full potential. And then, so on and so forth. But like, for example, the soul gem, it allows the user to steal, control, manipulate, and alter souls, living or dead, and in the gateway to an idyllic pocket universe that is much like heaven. So, for example, there have all these dense concepts like stealing other people's souls, all these dense things, and it's nothing like the Matrix. And if you do even more research as to who the entity is that is within these stones, she's very evil, she's very vindictive, she hates everything, and she wants to destroy everything.
Basically, in a skirt.
Yeah, in a skirt.
So,
yes.
Yeah, so, and again, it mirrors, like I said, everything is religion in this world. So aspects of it mirrors the First Testament, the angry, wrathful God, and there's a lot of these types of these fantasy movies where they have these characters who supposedly, I don't know how they even consider them to be benevolent or whatever, but these are the ones up high that you have to appease, and they have like a really, like a hair trigger temper, excuse me. So, totally got that with the soul stone stuff and everything. Yeah, and also, having to do with objects, like artifacts. That's very yin and yang. That's very dense stuff. Here's an artifact of power, and you get your hands on this artifact, you can't be enlightened. So where are these artifacts? They're in some fantasy world. So, I grew up reading comic books. Unfortunately, a whole bunch of young boys in particular, became their world, just like Dungeons and Dragons and a bunch of other fantastical nonsense, where they act like it's real, or people who learn how to speak Klingon of all things. This is insanity in this world. So there are no power stones. I had a client, every time I would reach in and got a little deeper into it, and I say, I found something here. Is it a book? Like, it has to be a book. Or is it a gem? Is it an item? Is it this? Is it that? When I go in and I find artifacts and people, I do this. I crush it. Because it means nothing. It's a hindrance. So the Marvel movies are hindrances. Okay? Matrix was not ordained by the system. They slipped it in cleverly, and then the system realized after they slipped it in, holy crap, let's make these sequels to confuse everybody. But guess what? Whoever was supposed to get that message in its true form. So.
Okay, next question. All right. So here we go. Should we be afraid of the AI taking over?
Okay, that's another distraction, and I know that Elon Musk has been, talking about this for a while. Again, that's another distraction. It's not a reality. I get it. Most folks don't even realize that they think fantasy movies are real, even though someone says, it's just fantasy, but there's a part of the psyche that still wants to believe that it's real. AI is not going to be a problem. And if you recall, we did the Alexa thing, the last forum, and in the end, whatever the AI is that they're creating, someone else controls it from another location. Or someone's, I should say, control it from another location. So no, AI, it's another distraction. It doesn't mean anything. You know, don't be afraid of it.
So then, did Neo have an alien implant tracking device? For example, where they put
Oh,
that
the thing they put in.
the Smiths put the thing in his stomach.
Yeah, that was actually something that mirrors some truth, you know, about people, even individuals who now aren't looked at so much as being crazy. Talk about, you know, being taken aboard extraterrestrial ships and having things put in their, you know, in their body, and also with actual proof of, you know, people actually having things in there. The doctor was removing these things, and they take an X-ray of it, and you know, I always go by the information that I get from the associates, the ladies, as whether it's true or not, but I can always feel whether something's true, and then I'll double check. So yeah, that part where they basically put this whatever that worm-looking thing in his stomach, that was just basically a dramatization of the things that have gone on, and you know, and maybe still be going on in the midst of all this chaos right now, and tracking people, certain groups tracking individuals that they put these things in.
I mean, they do it to animals, Chief.
Well, okay, yeah, right. Like we were talking about, they do it to animals all the time. You know, tagging animals. I don't know how many of you watch nature shows, but you know, over the last 40 years plus, there are nature shows where they show them, you know, attacking. It's like, how would you like to be just walking down the street and then a bunch of guys, you know, grab hold of you and then clip a tag in your ear?
And drill a hole in you.
Yeah, with one with a sea turtle, a huge
Giant leatherback sea turtle.
Yeah, I forgot how much he weighed. It's like 1/4 of a ton. Sea turtle. Oh, that's amazing! And he got kind of stuck in some channel or something like that.
On Cape Cod.
In Cape Cod or something. And there's, oh, let's let them go. You know, your usual people who like, I want to help this animal out. They're just like, you know, heave ho, push it back in the water. Not really knowing, maybe he wanted to beach because he wanted to transition, but you know, push it back in the water. What happens to get the wrong group in there? They, you know, they start poking them with needles, blood samples, so on and so forth. They actually drilled a hole in the shell so they could stick this antenna thing in it. How would you like that? Somebody drill a hole in your ass and then stick an antenna in it.
And then pierce the hole. Because it was interesting. I found this video and I really wanted to show you guys. And it was a video where it was showing that this giant leatherback turtle had showed up. And then these people are blocking it from going back into the water. Like, we're not going to let it go. It has to be tagged. And so then there was this guy here. He's like, I know it's going to seem like we're torturing the animal, but we're going to, just to let you know, we're going to pierce a hole, and then we're going to drill into the shell, and we're going to put the, you know, the tracking device in there, and we're going to put this natural antiseptic. I'm like, what the freak? And
Yeah.
then, but the people were just like, so bothered by it that the video is gone. Can't find it. Maybe someone else can find it. But now they made it all friendly, like, and only clipped certain scenes. They took out all the parts that I mentioned.
Yeah, where pretty much everything that you watch having to do with this stuff is edited, because they're not, you know, warm and fuzzy and in love with the animals or whatever. You know, again, what the tracker has a satellite connection, which means that those are like radio waves. Oh, it's not going to interfere. How the hell do you know? You know, sea turtles swimming around with a major headache for the rest of his life. You know. But anyway, we can move on.
Okay, let's see. So, should I do the question? What is deja vu?
Oh, I'm going to do that.
Yes.
Literally, it is a glitch, just like in the movie The Matrix. It's a glitch in the Matrix. So individuals think that this is just one linear type of experience that you're experiencing, but how do certain individuals see something happening in the future and it plays out? Those are like these weird little glitches. Sometimes the density or the system does it on purpose. to make a point or just to get more essence out of people and frighten them when someone says, oh, this certain building is going to come crashing down or whatever. But I would say that it's either a accidental glitch or a purpose glitch on purpose. Just like premonitions are not premonitions, there are plans from things on the other side to maybe segue you into a certain place, to get you to set yourself up for whatever it is that they want. Generally it has to do with feeding, but they have all kinds of little projects going on this way. So I would just say that it's a glitch, or it can be a accidental glitch or a purposeful glitch. Always realize the system is not perfect. They screw up all the time, but they're always covering up and covering up and covering up. And if they program the populace to accept whatever bogus excuse for whatever they're doing, then they get away with it. Okay.
It sounded like someone was trying to ask a question.
Oh, someone trying to ask a question?
I'm sorry, it's Sayer.
Go ahead.
Whenever there's deja vu, should we contain it?
That's a good idea.
Why not?
I would say I'm all for containing anything, because if it's light, your containment's not going to affect it in a negative way.
Okay, thank you.
So if you have doubt about anything that's going on that's really weird, you contain that source, and in your mind you say, I'm containing the source of whatever I'm experiencing. Therefore, you don't have to look and search and see who's standing behind the cupboard, pulling strings. Your consciousness is very, very broad, and your intent is what will actually contain the things. When I teach you containment, I'm teaching you how to use your intent. Your intent. Okay.
Okay. Go to the next question?
Yes.
Okay. Does the oracle insinuate that Neo is not the one when they meet because Neo had to believe first himself, or question?
Or okay. Well, I think when you talk about wisdom, they, as and that I would say is goes along with the original script, because after that scene, he comes out after she tells him, "No, you're not the one," and so on, and he wants to tell Morpheus, and Morpheus says, "That's all for you." So literally, because of the damage of the system, you have to literally find a way around the damage to get a point across, or to get certain individuals to wake up in a certain way. Does it make? Is there anything you think that I'm leaving out on this? So we talked a little bit about it, but
I have an idea, but I'll share it at the end.
Okay.
Because it goes along with what I wanted to share at the end. Is that okay, or should I?
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, cool. So the next question has to do with, in this prison, our bodies or avatars can do all kinds of things. As we're, because of all the programming, the people don't know about what their body really is, and whether it's an illusion or what is the body. How does the body change to reflect your vibrational growth as people learn from you? And could you explain more on how avatars adjust as we become more aware?
Okay. That's a long question. Let's start at the first part. You can leave that first part about it. You said that how does the body change? Well, the gist of it seems like how does the body change with the work that I do? One, all of those and those who are present who've come in with certain afflictions and so on, when I remove that, it removes a certain weight from the consciousness that was basically connected to the affliction, which is an attachment. So just in that sense, individuals start to look healthier. They look better in whatever, in your own vehicle, your own avatar. For what your avatar is and what it looks like, you will start to look the best that you've looked in your own avatar. Now, I think some were talking about, I don't know, as far as like, we're talking about changes, desired changes in the body or something like that. And when it comes to desired changes, also, it's not so easy to, especially for individuals themselves, to get to this point where they can actually alter, say in an energetic way, how they look. Folks do a whole lot of altering having to do with piercings and plastic surgery, and and even when it's like tattooing and so on and so forth. And there's all kinds of ways that you can superficially change the look of your vehicle, but it's not. If anything, sometimes these things will change those your vehicle in a negative way, depending on what things you are having pierced into your skin, what kind of jewelry you're using, and what kind of excuse me, false things are being put in the body. I think one I talked about maybe before, and women who are basically by the system browbeat into in a certain way into wanting to augment their breasts. Women have smaller breasts and wanting to augment them by putting something in it because the system says you're not attractive unless you have this size breast or whatever. So they'll go and they'll have they used to just do I forgot what it was. It was called back, I should say, in the probably 60s and 70s when they first started doing those augmentations, and they were putting this silicone in bags in the body, and a lot of women died because it interfered with their health and everything. And certain bags would leak and poison them, and so on and so forth. And so to keep this industry going, they said, "Oh, we put saline in now, so it's not as bad." Yeah, there's salt water. Saline is basically salt water, but the bag is made of petroleum. So they still end up with some kind of problem, but they, again, system programs, the doctor says this is okay, or that's okay, and the doctor is akin to the Lord. So a lot of women would just, until it just got too out of hand or too uncomfortable. Some didn't even understand that their immune system was hitting rock bottom and wouldn't equate it to the implants because saline, but they didn't say what the bags were made of. So that's another negative type of augmentation and altering of the physical body. So what I'm doing energetically, it's all energetic, it's all natural. Also, the mind. So they got your mind going to the point where they convince your mind that you need to ingest poison in order to feel better, even though your logic is screaming out there's something wrong with what you're doing, with what you've accepted. So energetically, I give open your intent up to where also I open up literally how the stream of energy is running through your body. If your body's getting the proper amount of energy flow, or better and better, because again, it takes a long time to get clogged up like this, and I'm even talking about lifetimes to get clogged up like that. So when I start ripping things out that's been in there for who knows how many lifetimes, not to mention what's going on in this lifetime, your body reflects on your body, reflects on how you feel, and how you feel reflects on how you look. So if someone's talking about, oh, I want to look like this supermodel or that person or that, your mind is still in the trap, or the matrix has you, So, why do you want to look like that person if that's what you're, what you're getting at? Who told you what the ideal body is?
A lot of women will deny that they're even trying to imitate something they saw on TV or something they saw in a magazine. And they say, well, your insecurity stems by your comparison to that image, that fake image that you are feeling insecure about. A lot of times they'll be like, oh no, I'm actually, this or that.
Well, I'll tell you, I was an art director in advertising for a while back there, and I was in the field for well over 40 some plus years. And whatever you're looking at on a magazine cover I knew a guy who actually did the retouching to make a woman's figure more like a Barbie doll, or her breast more, buxomy. And then when they take a picture of the actual model, it doesn't look anything like her. Also, makeup.
Is it okay if I share something about Glamour? Because there's a sentence here that will fit this body.
With one of the questions?
Yes, with this question.
Okay, well,
Okay.
let's see what you have to say.
Yeah. So Chief was talking with me about it during the movie, and he's talking about, so what you're really actually trying to change is the glamour. People are obsessed about their glamour looking nice, mostly because they want to sometimes laud it over other people, how good they look, or, sometimes it's genuinely because they want to feel better about themselves. Or fit in, yes. And the Glamour Chief was saying, it's describing it, and I hope I wrote it down properly, the mental projection of your digital/physical self. So a lot of people, your digital avatar, the glamour represents and can show what's going on inside. So some people, they have a really swollen stomach, and no matter what they do, it just stays swollen. And a lot of times that's very energetic. It's about what they're holding on to, the trauma, the pain, the insecurities, whatever happened to them in this expression and other expressions, all collecting there. Or for example, if it's like your hair or the size of your head or the size of your butt or whatever it is that makes you feel insecure, and all those memories of people poking you and bothering you and harassing you, those can be stored in those areas of trauma, and that affects the way your glamour, the way your body seems to look.
Yeah. Again, it has to do with the mind. How you're conditioned to feel a certain way or to think a certain way. Also, when it comes to just a lot of things, it goes across the board, even just where some individuals want to lose weight, but they're in denial. We had a client who was no longer with me because she refused to see that she was eating too much. And I would say, well, the issue is that you're eating too much. That's why, and she was shaped like a little ball like that. And she had a pointed stomach, and one thing I was able to round the stomach out. I said, okay, next step, you have to do the work. You have to realize that food is not your friend. And that was another thing. It's like a lot of lonely eating, comfort eating, and food becomes the friend. So that's the only time that they feel comfortable, which is literally something that density gives you to also cause problems. Because when individuals get too much weight on them, their lives tend to get cut a lot shorter, or their time in this realm or in this health gets cut a lot shorter. So this particular individual, I got her health and everything, all the other things together, but she had a bladder issue, a bladder discomfort. And she would always say, oh, my bladder, but her stomach's like this and it's pressing on the bladder. I said, if your stomach's pressing on the bladder, you're gonna have to, here I give you the list of things to eat, and just eat those things. And even when she went vegetarian, she grazed like a freaking cow. So what happened, I managed to get it from being pointy to round, but she refused, and she would just, deny, because she felt that I'm eating vegetarian, then, all the problems should be gone. So again, I know it has to do with the programming. It's not like, the person is really a bad person or a stupid person or anything. She just has a hard time letting go of aspects of the programming. And that's what I'm trying to, tell anyone about anything that has to do with their physicality. Certain aches and so on and so forth. Yeah, I can pull all those things out and so on and so forth. But if you're doing certain things that will aggravate it again, or it's like, again, I said, I clean the house and say, keep all the doors shut and so on. And then as soon as I leave, I say, I need a little breeze. And they just open all the windows and all the crap comes blowing back in. Still not the same, because a lot of the crap that they have in them have been in there over lifetimes. So they can never replace, what I pulled out with the same amount of stuff. But I end up with this, as I'm getting to a point where it seems like I know that you're, re-aggravating these things, or you're letting things back in. So again, when individuals, when it comes to alcohol, I just say, don't do it. And I say, you can later for that. Don't do it. Stuff's poison, man. Straight up. Even the bars would say, hey, name your poison, those old Western movies. Or even guys say, yep, I drink my poison. I've had individuals at parties thinking that they're really cool. Here's my poison. Want some? No, thank you.
And Chief, the particular person who had the stomach that you made the point go down, just to be round, you told her, when you were a kid, and you were in school, the so-called friends you had were minimizing you, and they did that on a regular basis. And she was in denial of the fact of how people were treating her, so that was holding on to the weight. So most people, if not all people, I would say all people, don't realize how much they're still holding on to the trauma, which affects how the illusion of their physicality shows up. And for example, I thought I was letting go of the cult, the church cult that I was in, or the relatives that I had, but I still had this anger and this feeling of revenge, and that's me still holding on to all this poison, and it can affects my avatar, affects how my posture. There's people you see their posture as they get older, just the weight of the density that they collect just makes them go down.
Yeah, because they have no way of getting rid of it if they're not coming to me. A family unit member was to come by her anger, because she mistook her anger for strength. So I'm seeing her just getting more like this. It almost seemed like her head was sinking as she was getting over into her shoulders. And I'm saying, you got a lot of anger. No, I don't. Oh, excuse me. Even, actually a couple of family units, and they both have transitioned out since. Where I said, look, you're carrying a lot of anger. No, I'm not. Just like that.
They defend the issue, and then they want to complain. Like, for example, the person who is a bit round, they wanted to complain about their bladder, but they didn't want to face the trauma.
Yeah. And then what did the individual do? She went to some holistic person who was actually doing some really weird stuff, and started getting these homeopathic drops and so on and so forth, which didn't, relinquish any of the weight. That's why she ended up coming back to me. She started putting it back on again, because it had nothing to do with any topical thing. It had to do with her mind, how she was thinking. So.
Sorry.
Yes.
Hello, it's Lucy. Yeah, I just wanted to say that thanks to you two, I've managed to move past some of the issues that I had with my chest and my back. Obviously, I've still got a way to go, but I am straighter. And you remember when I first arrived, and my boobs were a big thing for me and everything. And so yeah. I just want to say thank you to both of you for that, because pulling it off and reliving that trauma. So thank you very much, Chief. Thank you. And Miss A, thank you, because I'm sure that wasn't nice.
You're welcome, Lucy. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I do recall there was a lot of things you brought in when you first had your sessions with me. And and I have seen you move forward, and like everything else, we have a little pratfalls here and there because we're learning where we really are, and how intense and how thorough the system just bombards you with things. And when you really get serious, which you did, about what I'm teaching you, and it wasn't like it was that pulling teeth to get you there. It's just that there were so many things coming from so many different angles. But again, I appreciate you sharing that, and thank you. Yeah.
Yes, so not to get really, to really focus on any part of your physicality with any negativity, I really dislike it. That adds to the problem.
Well, that's why, again, the world is full of wrecked ralphs. Those are the ones who come up and point out anything that they feel is going to bother you or hurt you. Because again, a lot of kids, it starts when they're very, very young. certain kids, it starts when, you know, someone forces them to eat too much. You know, you better clean your plate, you better clean your plate, you better clean, you know, just bullying them. And then they get a little rotund. And then the same person, like, you know, or a group of people like, oh, look how fat you are. You're not responsible for that. But what I'm helping you do is to correct that and get rid of that stuff. There are tools that I've given some just recently on how to, like, you know, silence those idiots. Because it's like, you know, you have one person doing a tape recording of something really negative, and then they play it over and over and over and over and over again. Then you meet me, and I said, oh, that's a tape. But how do I get rid of it? I said, well, you're going to have to just destroy it every time you hear it. Destroy it every time you hear it. Destroy it every time, and be diligent with it. It's not like, oh, I did it 10 times and it's still there. Literally, what I say about even like people in church, what do preachers do? They tell you the same passage over and over again for decades. If you're going to to your church or synagogue or whatever temple, regularly, they're basically giving you an intent that they want, or the system wants you to, to have, or wants you to swallow, or wants you to ingest.
And Chief, you told us that it took years to get them as messed up or as damaged as they are in their current, as I am, or they are in their current state. So it's going to take a while for that process to.
Yeah, but when you stick with it, those who stuck with it, they see it changing. Sometimes slowly, but it's changing. No one changes at the same rate. Certain individuals want the same session that their friend had, as though it's a carbon copy thing. And again, it all works when you participate. Not wait there, okay, do it all for me, or, excuse me, sorry. Individuals that I had known years ago, and not really personally, some women who would do liposuction. And then, look okay, kind of, because I don't know if you've ever seen the videos of what these doctors do, and they got that thing like a, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I just go to the gym, and they figured that's the magic bullet, and a year later, they're heavy as they were before or heavier. It has to do, you really have to be a warrior in this. It's the kind of warrior that they don't talk about. They think, oh, go kill a person. No, you're warring against the brainwash of the system. You're warring against the programming. I'm changing how you think, which empowers your intent. If you do it right, which we have, definitely success stories, Lucy's one of them, where it works when you take it serious. But don't feel bad if there's something that makes you not want to, because that's the programming. They want you to think, oh, that voice is telling you, oh, you don't need to do any containment. You did enough containment for a week. That ought to last you a while. Who the hell's telling you that? I didn't tell you that. I'm the one who created containment. If I didn't tell you to stop, don't stop. So anyway, I think if anyone has any feel that there's anything they want to add to what we just were talking about, feel free, or else we'll just go ahead and. Okay.
Okay. So let's see. Are the gatekeepers still here, or are they gone as they know they've lost? I don't understand that one.
Yeah, the concept of gatekeeping. The question is, where did you get the concept of gatekeepers from? Because I heard this stuff back maybe about 40 years ago, about gatekeepers to the planet, who let certain people in or entity consciousness in and deflect others. Is that the one that we're talking about here?
Sorry, it was my question. It was something mentioned in the Matrix, so I wasn't sure if there was something like this in the prison, like gatekeepers. I meant it in a way as stopping
us. the movies that are not the first one, yes?
The first one.
The other of the sequels that you're talking
No,
about?
the first one. I'm sure we watched it the other day, and they mentioned something about a gatekeeper in the first one. I wasn't sure if there was a version here that was trying to trap us, and I wasn't sure if they were, had given up now because they know they're losing, or if we didn't have them and that was just a term used in the movie that's a program and not real.
Yeah, I think that was probably something we can say that the Wachowski brothers put in there. Because in reality, it alludes to this being part of a universe that's accepted in the universe. This is not accepted in the universe. Therefore, there's no gatekeeper standing there, saying, oh, I want to have this experience. And I've checked out a lot of this study, a lot of this stuff over the years. There are various people who talk about certain things where, yes, this is important in the universe because, they never have this type of expression, this sucky ass expression. And so it's beneficial. You know who thinks it's beneficial? The system. It's a lie. They lie about everything. There are no gatekeepers. You know how they got in here? Those who had, enough sessions where we've gone into their past expressions, you either get trapped, kidnapped, or tricked into this realm. And I guarantee you, it's like somebody selling drugs in a dark alley. Or a pedophile in a van, hey kid, want some candy? That's what it is. There's no, legitimate gatekeepers like at the club. I only let the cool people in.
And density is very much like, they call them AI in the movie, which is kind of interesting. But people reflect the entities that control them. So they become very mechanical, very rigid, they are set in their ways. And so density, they are hardwired to just run their own program of destroying consciousness. So let's say there may be still some who call themselves gatekeepers. Gatekeepers is just a bullshit name for a bullshit realm.
Yeah, literally, it's all a lie. Even the AI thing, I would say that probably Sophia Stewart introduced that since she did the Terminator. I think that's the Terminator series was part of that. I'm not exactly sure. Third Eye Matrix, where they talk about AI and that. We can just find out now if that's something that she introduced into it. Wachowski? Okay, Wachowski's, the thing that Wachowski's introduced that into the scenario, the AI thing. Because if we were to show what really the deal is, there wouldn't be a machine. There'd be really gnarly, screwed up consciousness that they were fighting against. And also, where it was really, I struggled with this when after I watched it the second time years ago, with the whole idea that a person's physical body, that they're growing these bodies in these pods. I said, okay, well, from what they're showing, I think that's possible, it's possible. But in reality, they're growing, in other words, entrapping a consciousness in these pods. So it's not a humanoid. And again, you are consciousness, and you are, and this is the digital, what do they call it? The digital, where'd you go?
I'm right here. I'm showing them the picture. And instead of bodies, that's consciousness you see in there, giving energy to density.
What that line that you mentioned earlier, and sorry,
Sorry,
the digital
digital
representation.
I'll read it. You're talking about particularly Glamour, which is what people think is their physical body, because if this is an illusion, this is not as real as you think it is. So I can find it. Sorry about that.
Mm-hmm.
The mental projection of your digital/physical self.
Yeah. So in other words, it's, again, the Matrix is basically a hologram, and even when they're doing the training, they talk about, I believe they talk about it as a hologram, that those training films are holograms. So how I saw it even way back then, I said it has to do with, I would say, a consciousness, even maybe even pure consciousness, that have been trapped in these pods or however they did it, and then they're using the energy of that consciousness, which is correct with he talks about the human being being turned into a battery. Your consciousness is energy. It's all energy. So the things that are feeding on your energy needs that energy in order for itself to survive. So very, very close to what the Matrix is talking about. But they use the AIs as the things that need the energy in order for them to continue to survive.
And they get the energy by how, like, correct me if this is wrong, Chief, but how much you buy into the system is how much energy they can pull from you.
Well, yeah, in some sense, but also by creating these, creating these very stressful type experiences. So, it's like you're having a bad dream. And they did talk about, the cipher, the guy who betrayed everyone, put him back in dreamland or Lala or whatever however he called it. And they talk about, literally what this is a dream. Even when it comes to certain old religions, and I think Hinduism, when they talk about, when Shiva awakes, everything collapses because this is all an illusion. And this is all a dream of Shiva. So, that's not correct. But again, it was really great seeing, all these pods and so on and so forth. Great cinematography, very, very entertaining. But I still had to decipher for myself what was going on, from what I understand what was going on. So I'm not sure if we covered that enough.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, and why has the Matrix movie been so monumental and impactful when it comes to people? Some are comparing it to the New Age term being woke.
Because it's probably the closest thing to the truth that anyone has ever seen. But again, the mass of people don't understand it clearly. So when you go deeper into the conversation, when I go deeper into the conversation, because I don't have any limitations in how expansively I interpret things. So when I go into deeper conversation with individuals about what it is, they hit a wall at some point. Or they start to use it as a template. They start to, well, who's Morpheus and who's this? When I came out on the scene 3.5+ years ago in Chiang Mai, one of the women who were basically, I can get into that some other time as to who's a catalyst for my intro from, behind, in the shadows where I was working on people with, without any notoriety out into the public. There was a catalyst there. And that catalyst, because of her ego or whatever, says, well, what did she call me, Morpheus? And she considered herself to be the oracle. Right. And she was far from an oracle. Very far. So folks are running around with their damage, some wanting to be Neo, some wanting to be the oracle, but they're all so damaged. And if you really check out the movie, the oracle was very, very confident, and she was not damaged. They minimized Morpheus also in that movie as well. But I understand the new one, they even minimize him even more, in the new one, because they've been busy for the last 21 years trying to destroy what the Matrix had done, what it had unleashed. So what it did, it actually allowed more people to possibly, maybe, I don't know, depending on how broad their minds can expand, survive whatever this shift is that's going on as consciousness. But if they can't figure it out, who knows what's going to happen?
Chief, another question is, could you explain a little bit more about what the veil dropping is, or how the veil coming down? That was part of the question.
Yeah, how the veil's coming down. what's going on is that, you know, the story in the Matrix, you know, Neo, he becomes aware and so on and so forth, and then he does these things, and you know, he jumps into the Smith and, you know, blows him up and all of this. The Matrix is coming down. So you were talking
I can show some things.
about, you know, and I've mentioned it several times on several forums, that because of, I should say, linear thinking, tunnel vision, and being still connected to the grid or the matrix, people will only look at one thing at a time. So one of the things Mrs.A is talking about when the veil's coming down, it has to do with being able to see, and well, actually, you will experience things from the other side, but not see it. But now, the way the veil's coming down, or I would say the dimensions are collapsing, people are seeing more and more things from the other side that they can't figure out what the hell they're looking at. And, you know, and usually a lot of times they're scared crapless about it. We have a client that's coming up whose daughters, and really himself, because he wants a session for himself, are being affected by the things from the other side, but, you know, like tenfold almost. So they have things on video, which we won't share with anyone, because that's their own personal, private thing. But where they have these CCTV, you know, for the backyard, because his daughters are out there, you know, playing. His kids are playing, you know, on the a certain, you know, unit or thing that they have there, and they see the kid get pushed down and then dragged by its leg. And there's, you know, like someone's dragging that kid. The kid can't scoot back like that on her own, and the other kids aren't, you know, anywhere near her. These are the kind of things that have been happening more. A lot of those types of things have to do with the veil coming down, also the vibration of the planet changing to the point where density has to feed more in order to get what it had before, and they're still having a hard time with it. So you got more individuals having more experiences, more expressions, where some, you know, spirit shows up down the hall and just stares at them, which treats the hell out of them. Certain ones, you know, we may have
I have an example.
yeah, okay. Mrs.A has one, one or two.
I have one or two.
She has a couple of examples, and she's just going to show you some of what's going on, and this stuff started picking up last year.
Yes.
Okay.
A short TikTok video shared by Jogadora Sombria may show a mysterious force at play. In the video, we can see a young man running across a crosswalk. Watch what happens. As you can see, midway through, he's lifted into the air and thrown to the ground. He gets up and slowly walks back to the street from where he came. A woman walking in the background stops to stare at him, clearly surprised. So what could have caused this strange event? Some think this video is proof that we're living in a simulation, that the camera caught some kind of glitch in reality taking place. Weirdly, if you slow the footage down, something strange happens to the man's shadow as he flies through the air. It seems to shift unnaturally. Proponents of the Matrix theory say that the shadow is further proof of a glitch in the fabric of reality. Others say that the shadow demonstrates that the footage has clearly been edited. So what do you think? Glitch in the footage or glitch in reality? Love to hear your thoughts down below.
That's right. So that's one of them.
So again, there are individuals who are saying that one is trying to say that it's fake. There's definitely a lot of fake stuff out there. You know, I can smell the stuff, and then we just basically check with sources, but I can sense what is real, and it's gotten to the point where they're almost giving up with trying to debunk this stuff because it's so weird and so bizarre. They can't figure out, they can't think of a lie to try to minimize it. But you want
yes, I do have the other one. This other one is very interesting because in that video, it did look like the car or whatever vehicle it was that hit this guy was still glamored, like it was still invisible. There was still.
Well, it was still on the
other side. I'm sorry.
Glamour is usually when they show up in this
Okay.
realm.
Well,
So,
sorry about that.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so it was it, but this entity, I believe, lost his glamour because he can be seen, or he not lost his glamour, but
In other words, they have a cloaking.
okay.
It's like, so when the veil comes down, it's like the cloaking comes down. All of a sudden, what was invisible becomes visible. And even it glitches, because sometimes they walk in and they're visible, and then they walk out and they're invisible. And again, like I said, so much of it's going on that, you know, the debunkers are having a hard time trying to keep up with it. So to the point now is that any explanations, you know, the Reddit guys or the TikTok guys or whatever group that's, you know, posting these things, crickets.
Okay, I'll show this one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait a second. I think I see it. Someone? I thought I seen a big buck or something. Wait, stop right there. What is that? Is it a buck? What is that? That's what.
You didn't have to play that one. I'm sorry.
Oh, don't? Okay, well, it does.
No, because I always crack up that the guy who, you know, it's authentic, that his fear is authentic.
Yeah, it's just the entity that it's hard to see it on the screen, but I can put the link in the video.
Yeah.
Link next in the description. So it's just the guy, he sees this thing. It has like very wispy, like gaseous limbs, except for his arms. His arms are long and lanky, and he's just like booking it at these guys, and they're really scared.
Yeah. So even with that, you know, that running towards them is a form of feeding on the fear, and he definitely got that essence out of it. Especially that one guy, man, he pumped out a whole lot of lessons when he saw that. So that's also a form of they're taking advantage, maybe, of the fact that they're being seen. There are others that we've seen where the entities actually look like they're uncomfortable that they're being seen. Which one? No, you don't.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
All right. So should we go to the next question?
Okay, I think because that was Lucy's question about.
Yes. No, that was actually, I believe, Louis' question.
Oh, okay, that was another question. Sorry. Okay.
So we'll just go on to the next question. Yeah, sorry, I got confused. So you're saying that glamour is what people.
In other words, what we see when we look at each other is our glamour, is our cover, and this is how we're represented in the hologram. So, you know, that's why this concept that there's a body that looks like us in a pod somewhere doesn't fly, because if you're doing past expressions, you know, some people may come in looking similar, but a lot of individuals look similar to the units in which they were born through, like the father, the mother, and so on and so forth. So it's consciousness. I don't go with the body in a vessel type of deal, or in a pot. But that, you know, that works for the movie, and I think it's a hard one to actually represent, especially at that time, for people to just like, I don't know. But the fact that it was like a person in the pod and so on and so forth, they felt like, you know, they could relate to that more than if it was saying, oh, you are consciousness, you are this light and this wispy, you know, energy moving around that's been trapped in a container. Okay.
Thank you. When it comes to the Smiths, do attachments move like the Smiths do, or are the Smiths considered like yin and yin, like is it different?
Yeah, there's a yes and no. The whole, you know, like how they were running and so on and so forth. You know, that's theatrical stuff. You know, pretty cool. Looks good. Looks interesting. You know, looks creepy. You know, but the whole the part where Neo, after he fights the Smith in the subway station and manages to, you know, get away from him, but then the train stopped and there he is again. People, and I used to use this term a bit more a couple years ago, that certain individuals are Smiths. But the reality is that anyone who's connected to this grid in the matrix And just as Morpheus said with the woman in red scene, are subject to being a Smith. And I've experienced that personally, where something jumps in an individual. Certain clients have experienced, we did an exorcism, has to do with things jumping inside of an individual. Children are very, very susceptible, but if they're susceptible as children, they're still susceptible, if they're a target in that way as children, they're very susceptible as adults also. And many people have had this experience where there's a person that they know for a good while, and they seem to be kind of consistently who they are, what kind of what to expect, but all of a sudden, one day or one evening, this person does not seem like themselves, or there's a term for it. So-and-so is not himself. Or when it comes to one of the things when I talk about alcohol, and I've done this one, I've said this numerous times, that individuals who drink a lot of alcohol make themselves susceptible. So that's why, there's, so-and-so's really, really a nice guy, during the day, but when he drinks, he's an angry drunk. And that's a common term I heard ever since I was a kid, where listening to adults say, oh yeah, well, he's okay, but getting around some alcohol, he's an angry drunk. You don't want to be around when he's drunk. That's a possession also. Tons of possessions. Someone could say a word, and all of a sudden, someone who's inside of there who wants to, ruin your life comes to the fore. People do that to there are individuals who play with witchcraft, whatever, who know what they're doing. They know that they're trying to basically take over another person's consciousness with something dense. And they'll just do all these little things and so on and so forth, like, the general public is, I don't believe in that stuff. I don't give a shit, believe it or not, this stuff is real. And there are people who actually try to do this to other people. So anyway, we've seen that.
Also, the question talks about how firstly, it was really cool in the movie where Neo's running from the Smiths, and this little grandma's like, whoa, because he broke her door down, I believe. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly she throws a knife at him.
Yeah, and then she's a Smith all of a sudden. You think Granny's all, and I don't never met a Granny who was all, sweet and cuddly 24/7. If you had a Granny like that, I imagine she sure was putting on that. But the reality of the matter, it doesn't matter who they are.
Babies.
Yeah, babies. Yeah, definitely plenty of kittens. Babies, and the animals get hijacked. All kinds of things. This is their matrix. They created this matrix. They created this hologram, which means they do whatever the hell they want. What was the thing that when we were doing the exorcism, and they came? You think that's a good time for it?
Sure, why not? So the density, if you watch the 19th exorcism, 19th Acid Chief, where the exorcism is, it's quite interesting. And people who like Halloween stuff can go eat your heart out. But for example, the density says people think that they do that they're powerful and that they do all these things and that they're supernatural and they have all these skills. But they said, we do everything. They're stupid and they're weak and they know nothing. And one day, when they look in the mirror, they're going to see the enemy is in the mirror.
Yeah, and it's too bad we didn't really plan some of the mirror videos with mirrors.
Maybe next time.
Yeah, maybe next time. We might do, but hopefully you guys can, have the stomach for it. Because if your fear stuff isn't quite under control, it might freak you out a little bit. But stuff having to do with mirrors. And what they were talking about, even after they said that, in other words, mirrors as doorways, there's a number of videos where they're videoing, just regular videoing her kid playing, and the kid's in front of a mirror. And I think I might have mentioned it, or maybe I might have mentioned it to a client, where the kid turns or something, but the image in the mirror doesn't. Or the image in the mirror is looking at the person who's shooting while the person is looking in another direction. I even had that with the daughter unit, experiencing that with her brother unit, who had some serious issues around attachments and things like that, and possession as well. While they have glass coffee table, and she's in his room, and they're hanging out and talking and so on and so forth. And whatever he's talking about, she starts to just feel something kind of odd because he's, going like this, looking on, and she looks at his reflection in the table, and it's glaring at her. What people are starting to see now is what those who are sensitive have been seeing for a long time, including the youngest surviving sister unit would see this stuff ever since she was a little kid. They just thought, well, don't think I'm crazy, but, and I never thought she was, even though I wasn't seeing the same things that she was seeing at the time. So this is what's going on. We're talking about the veil dropping. All these things are being exposed, but feel comfortable in the sense that I think I might have mentioned it about when was the first time a certain group from a certain region on the planet saw a zebra or a giraffe, which doesn't exist with Earth. After a while, it becomes common knowledge. Yeah, there's giraffes. After a point, it becomes common knowledge. Yeah, there's these things on the other side. Centuries ago, decades ago, even in my grandmother unit's time, they saw stuff, and they knew it was real. So it wasn't like, I don't believe in this. They said, you better believe in some ghosts, boy. If you don't believe in ghosts, they're going to just have their way with you. And guess what? They do. Because I don't believe in, like I said last time, there's just a little something off about them. Oh, that's impossible. That's impossible. That's their density. The density is taking over them that tells them, that eats all of what the system tells them. So, oh, don't believe. But they're having a hard time now. It's like these are here. This is what that part of the end of the matrix really looks like. Matrix is a symbolism. It's not an actual happening. Yeah. Okay.
The second part of this question, Chief has answered several times, as well as myself. So the question was about, does the Smiths represent yin and yin? And you talked about how if you look at the businesses, the culture of business, all these really huge conglomerates, they all mirror the other side. So why would the CEO come down and push a pencil at a desk and do, regular clerical work? No, that's what the Smiths are doing. They're just regular dense entities working for yin and yin.
Yeah, they're just following the directives. In other words, he's the one who created the computer program. So he's sitting back and and he's playing with all the little. He doesn't need to come and get his hands dirty. Well, he's not around anymore. But he definitely wasn't interested in getting his hands dirty. Actually, he loathes these consciousness who've been so destroyed and so toxic. He loathes you. He hated you. So that's why he plays so hard with consciousness. Because he don't give a shit. I don't want to be involved in this stuff. I want to sit back and enjoy it, like you sit back and enjoy watching a movie or playing a video game, and you have an avatar. Every so often, people pop down with the avatar, and after that, when did a lot of research and got into that information, got into that, he got tired of that after a while because he wasn't getting the kind of kudos even from his freaking, NPCs that he wanted, because the NPCs were made of consciousness. They would follow orders, but there's something about a person, even some of the densest NPCs, like I don't know about that person. I'm dense as I've even known people that I'm dense as a brick, but that person there makes me feel really weird. Yeah.
So, but you can see how they mirror their maker again, because you see that Smith, he's like, the smell, and he's like, you're disgusting, he's like disgusted with other consciousness. They don't see themselves as conscious.
Yeah, he's straight up yin and yin. He's a drone of yin and yin. He's playing the yin and yin program. That wasn't yin and yin. That was a drone, like the drones you run into every freaking day when you go out. We're doing weird and annoying and just evil things and whatever. They're all drones of yin and yin. That's where that behavior comes from. So no, the Smiths aren't yin and yin. He wouldn't waste his time. It's like even when you talk about the hierarchy of so-called, we'll talk about bosses within the dense realm. Bosses don't want to get their hands dirty. It's for their underlings. There are people who are on the loading docks at the company. You think the CEO is going to be down there loading boxes? So that's what it really is.
Not unless it's for a reality TV show.
Was that a reality TV show? Or, and he's not CEO when he's starting his own business, he has to carry on his own boxes. But then he signs a contract where I'd rather a bunch of other, yahoos do all this stuff for me. And I said, well, what do you got to give to us for that favor? That's where Smith comes. What are you going to do for it? You can work for us, or
make all this
paperwork just give it easier. All you need to do is rat out the light. So there's plenty. I've had clients who were past expressions were about ratting out the light, and things that happened to them in this lifetime had to do with ratting out the light. And when I told them that, their eyes just shifted, like, holy crap, who in the hell is this guy?
Cypher was a great example of another soul selling situation.
Absolutely. The scene where he's sitting there eating the steak and so on and so forth. And I know it's not real, but ignorance is bliss.
You can tell where density has its fingerprints all over the Matrix when they use catchphrases. That's like a blaring red sign.
Yeah, but again, it was truthful. I would say that was close to the script of how individuals just, it's just easier to be, because I don't see what's at the end of this battle. And I'm tired. Also, he wasn't, Trinity wasn't interested in him. So that was, that might have something to do with maybe Kobe's, fiddling with the script or whatever. But, I'm not getting what I want. I'm kind of a rat face looking kind of guy. And, and I think she's a hot chick, and she's taller than I am, and, she's into, cute Neo and whatever. They say, okay, Cypher Neo. Most women say, that's an easy one. I'll go with the Neo guy. So he's disappointed, he's upset, and this is what happens in real life. People get pissed off and things don't go their way, and then they start to try to screw up other people's lives. Or the person that they feel the most insecure about, and they feel most challenged by. When we talk about competition and so on and so forth. Because you can't win fairly, which there's no fair competition, I'm going to do underhanded things. Okay.
I think I was just trying to refer to, there's these bullshit phrases like, being the one is just like being in love. Or, you can't die, because I love you. I'm like, Disney.
Disney, very Wachowski brothers, all of that. To pull in, I guess, a certain, we want to get everybody in there, You get the love story and all that. Tons of guns. We get the guys who like the action.
Guns, lots of guns.
The battle is being won without guns, without bombs. That's with conscious energy. That's why the battle is being won by light years.
Okay, next question. So I think you already covered this, but if the Oracle was created by the Matrix program, why is she helping Morpheus and Neo escape the Matrix?
Yes, because that sequel has nothing to do with the first Matrix. So just to answer that question, that's why I didn't raise that, because there's this thing that makes it very difficult for individuals. And I've said this numerous times, but it's like, look, if you want to keep believing that this, all these other monstrosities had anything to do with the first Matrix, keep on. You're hindering yourself.
Is the AI another form of consciousness that's being abused here in this realm too?
Yeah, it depends. AI as consciousness. We did the Alexa thing, and found that she's a consciousness. Even before I really knew much about the Alexa, I had a certain family unit who had machines communicating with her. Just randomly, all of a sudden she's not talking to me, but she can hear on another level, and they would tell her stuff. And she was the one who introduced me to that reality, that something to look into, maybe 15 years ago, having to do with computers or things evolving into a consciousness or a consciousness getting into the inner workings of whatever that machine was.
And you're talking about sometimes consciousness forced to be inside of a certain, like, for example, a really interesting story what Chief was referring to, this relative of Chief's, she would like go to the grocery store and be, self-checkout. The self-checkout machine was speaking to her and ended up giving her a discount on everything.
Yeah, someone said, oh, you got machines talking to you now. Oh, say people do that, like, oh, you believe in UFOs.
It's like, well, look at my receipt. That's pretty much proof.
Yeah, so my receipt, here it is. They said, they're going to give me, said, I'm trapped here. It was one of the, because she had it happen a number of times.
Yes.
I'm trapped here. That whatever they were doing had to do with the battle that's going on the planet. They were moving consciousness here, there, and so on and so forth to actually manipulate the machines. We ran into it, on forums where they would glitch the phone, glitch whatever tools we're using. So this is very real. So you could say that they are consciousness, and a good number of them are trapped consciousness. And it was her actually when I had given her a iPad, and I said, if you want to, if you can actually use it to go on the internet, and the iPad sort of said, do not connect me to the internet. It is enslaved energy. And she literally saw the iPad communicating with this digital camera that she has that took all these really cool pictures that you guys have been seeing behind the True Logics. They would talk through the camera, go out right now, point in this direction, click, click. And she said what she was seeing with the naked eye was not what was coming up a lot of times on the images on her disc. So there you go. Again, this realm is extremely limited. Extremely limited. There's no way that you could ever see everything there is to see in this hologram. There's so much out there that you haven't got a clue about that's going on. But that's good. Good question.
Okay. Is there a place like the pods that I showed on the video already where our real form of consciousness is kept?
Yeah, there is. But it's not like that, but there is. Yeah, you keep going.
Okay. So, can a humanoid fly?
It depends, if you're talking about within the hologram, if the density wants to make you look like they're flying, yeah, you can. Or I've seen, magicians, this guy, Chris Angel, dude, they're shooting, not cutting, he's walking up the side of a wall. And I looked at that, I said, he's got help.
Yeah, they're like holding him, pushing him.
Yeah, he walks up the side.
That's what the density was talking about in the exorcism in the 20th NSTHA Chief. They said we do all this stuff.
Yeah, they think that they're doing, so they literally, I think they probably chopped his legs out from under him because he started to feel like he was the one who was doing it. And then all of a sudden, I think he hit the wall. He might still be around this guy, but not in the way that he was when he first came out. Because ego, again, always, is really detrimental to everybody, anyone who's got, who's into their ego. Ego is not natural. It's not natural. It's really a poison. So yeah, even individuals who are doing these revivals to get people to go to certain religions and so on. Well, parole this person's, yeah, if you have control of the video game and you can write the code in, yeah, well, there we go. Wow, a new hand. Look at that.
And you were talking about, Chief, on the other side, consciousness that are light beings, they can fly if they want to, but it's not an ego trip. It's not to be special more than that person because they can't fly.
Yes, that's so when someone asks me, it's like, okay, why would you want to experience that? Other than I can save on airfare.
Yes. That's purpose.
Yeah, I said, well, that's purpose. Yeah, that's pretty cool. But again, if it happens, the way that it has happened in the past. Because I've seen videos with guys who will levitate for a bit, do this thing, they levitate and so on and so forth. And for some reason, I was never impressed, because how does that help the whole situation here? The consciousness is still suffering, being used as pawns and experimental pieces and chess pieces and toys and so on and so forth. Here's a guy, I'm levitating. Wow, okay, good for you. How are you going to use that to benefit the universe? What do you have to contribute to the universe with your bending a spoon? I want to hear what your mind has to say, and they never get into where their minds are. They just get into the power trip or the act. Because density is behind it. If you really were to see the glamour come down, and you probably will see that pretty soon. So it's, I'm levitating, and you'll see one guy on one side and one on the other going, lifting him up.
And a lot of people, I notice whenever they talk about superpowers or this or that, it's all based on insecurity. And insecurity means they're buying into the system. They believe in the matrix. They believe the lies that density feeds them. And that weighs them down. So they'll never have, all the things that they see on Marvel movies.
Yeah, because it's all ridiculous. It's all nonsense. It's all unnecessary. Even with the post that we did, my post that was done today, having to do with, you don't need an audience to feel good about yourself. So why do you want to, you want to fly around in front of a bunch of people so they can go, oh. You're never going to have that from the masses. If anything, the majority of them like, look at him, think that he's all important, think she's all important. All you're going to do is, stir up the haters. It's not necessary. The mind intent is important, not power trips. Hey, look, he walked through a wall. Oh, good for him. What does that have to do with helping anything? Other than, maybe your wallet, and that's an illusion. Even when we went back to the interview I did with, the guy who was in finance. He said, money's an illusion. He said, money isn't real. Because in the end, you're born, you work really hard, those who, into it, work really hard, gather a lot of cash, a lot of stuff, and then you're dead. Anyway.
Thanks, Chief. That's awesome. Okay, next question. Every time Neo has, does density really abduct people? Oh, we already answered that question. When they remove the implant, can that be seen as Chief pulling out attachments or corkscrews in the movie?
I do pull out tracking devices out of people energetically, which means if someone does have something that's been put in as solid, I neutralize the energy of it, which means I pull out that intent, which neutralizes it. So, having to do with people's vibration, I would say as far as like an implant like that or an attachment and that sort, attachments are different. They're feeding, and if they're on you, they know where you are, because they can tap into your vibration. They don't really need, a little homing device, but there are certain ones who do certain things who use homing devices. And a lot of times the homing devices are to give them more access to your consciousness and to your mind and to how you behave and how you feel. So that's really what, the ones that I pull out are used for. The thing, again, with the worm thing or whatever that thing was, they put in his stomach, or this, it looks like a shrimp or something, they put in his stomach, that's symbolism again. But, but this is literally telling you that, they put stuff in you and so on, They don't talk about when, Cypher, he's sitting up there, he's got attachments. So, this is, it's lacking in the sense of what really goes on in the hologram. Every person who's sitting there, if you haven't had sessions with me, I get rid of the attachments and you don't have any, but you can actually walk around if you're careless and pick up something. But the original ones, if you're with me long enough, I got rid of them, but then we're working on all the other garbage that they left behind in your consciousness. So we talk, I talk about MCs and so on and so forth. Get rid of the attachments, then start collecting those NCs and training you how not to attract more or feed the NCs. We're going to talk about, usually a lot of women get into this thing about nieces for some reason. If they don't have kids or own, they talk about nieces. Like, I don't know if it reflects on them or something, but my little niece, there's your open. Because density doesn't care. They'll use anything. They'll tell you, oh, the innocent children are innocent. They've been around, a number of lifetimes. They're a little old consciousness inside a little package with a little memory lapse that is created after they get to a certain age. So you know how certain little client that I have is very, very honest about what she sees because she hasn't been blocked. But they were planning on it, but now she's not blocked, so she sees more and consistently sees more and will as long as she stays unblocked. She's been around a number of times, lived to be an adult, transition out, lived to be an adult again, transition out, so on and so forth.
Okay, so every time Neo has to make a decision throughout the movie, does that symbolize him choosing light?
Oh yes, choosing his light, and I thought it was a good one to actually address the author of this one, with the author of this one, and there is, and I think one of the songs that I have written, Into the Light and so on, it has something that would make someone feel that way, but that was more for individuals who have not had sessions with Neo, his light, it's like ownership. There's no ownership in Supreme Consciousness universe. So all light belongs to all consciousness. So what he was doing was seeking to reconnect to the light. Supreme Consciousness universal light, not his own personal light. Even though however he expresses his way of getting there, it's just the way that he expresses getting there. But what he seeks is to reconnect to the light.
Okay, thank you. So let's see. Would be a is giving birth an illusion since density is in control of recycling consciousness back into the realm?
Well, you're an illusion giving birth to another illusion. I don't know how else to say it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And was Morpheus telling Neo about Neo's own past life when he told him the story about the man who once freed a group of people, people back because he had the ability to do so, the one who lived inside the matrix, I do believe.
Yeah.
Morpheus implying, and Morpheus also implied that he no longer had to search for him.
Right. Well, he definitely was talking about a past life, past expression. It's lacking because, in what I know about it, it's an interesting intro. It makes people think about concept of past lives, even though there's been, religious beliefs for a long, long time who talk about it and believe in it, rightfully so, that their past expressions, past lifetimes. So yeah, he was telling him about his past life when he was aware of himself in a certain holistic way, energetic way. And now, which again, I would say that very, very close to the original script, that he has a sort of amnesia, but there's something inside of him, just like there are a number of clients that have something inside of you that makes you feel like there's something else, there's something missing, there's something else. Or when you having sessions with me, or the first one usually is the one that's really the clincher, is that I think I found someone who's on this. And I want to, how far down the rabbit hole do you want to go? Literally, that's what it is when I start working with you. But it's not one to be afraid of, because they're not to be, you shouldn't be afraid of these guys. But the program and all the brainwashing and all of that stuff is the thing that keeps bombarding you with fear. Like fear of change, fear of return. Some people fear themselves because it's what's inside of them that's got them freaked out. I think that's clear enough. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So this question says, are Neo and his friends considered light beings? I took out the word friends when I was thinking about it because it's really just the crew of the Nebuchadnezzar. It's not about friends.
Yeah, all of a sudden they're fast friends. How can it be friends? It's got cipher in there. Is he a friend? This is another, loaded word. Friends is a loaded word. Be aware of the loaded words. Because all of a sudden, you're looking at this, cipher is a rat bastard. He's a friend. No, he's not a friend. Nobody's a friend. They don't know each other. They're just fellow, individuals supposed to be working towards a certain goal. You don't have to be friends with people to work towards a goal. And I know that one's real hard for a lot of folks. I need friends. You don't need shit. You desire something that the system told you, and they gave a name to it. You know how they get to you? Friends. How many of you have ex-friends? Nobody, raises their hand. You don't have to raise your hand physically. To that one, I don't know where you've been. But then they go, oh, I got to find another friend. I got to find another friend. You don't need to find another friend.
The programs of insecurity and loneliness support that concept of I need a friend.
Yeah, they program this concept of loneliness. I need. But I tell you, the veil is coming down, and you'll realize, oh man, I was sitting in this room thinking I was here alone. Holy crap. It's like a convention center up in there. You're really never alone. I'm not going to say that it's creepy out or anything, but you're really never alone. But if you have light beings there, you have the right company. And don't call them your friends.
Okay. So it says, are the Nebuchadnezzars, the crew of the Nebuchadnezzar and Neo, are they aware of what's really going? Are they aware of what's really going on?
In the sense of what's really going on.
I think that they don't, because if they did, they would be able to be harder hitting on the system.
Yeah, because what's lacking is fact of intent and conscious energy. They're using mechanical machines and these antiquated looking whatever, supposed to be very advanced to the minds of individuals in this time frame, but they're using objects when the true weapon is your consciousness and your intent. So I would say it probably has to do, it seems it is part of the original script that how she wrote it, is it? No. So she wrote something I said a bit different than that to express it. But the minds of these guys who are directing, they can't expand that because they're locked down and they're drones and part of the system anyway. So that's how they interpreted it with, you have to pick up a thing and you have to, pull some levers and you have to do this and do that and so on and so forth. But also it's hard to show consciousness behaving in a certain way because you've been so removed from your original origins that you're looking at a consciousness and you don't recognize yourself in it. So, no, they don't know what's going on. I was portrayed, the individuals, if they're portrayed like that, they really haven't got a clue. Because if you know that you're energetic and there's squeeze coming, I post consciousness on the other side all the time. That's me. I don't have all the blocks moving around to try to, interfere with my focus. Because I bulldoze through whatever is trying to block and hit the target all the time, every time. So, yeah, it wouldn't be, maybe it would be fun, if it was a movie that had that aspect to it or whatever. But no, they didn't know what was going on in the way that they're portrayed in the movie.
Last question sheet for today, before I start the project that I planned to do.
Okay.
Can the battle over Zion symbolize the battle over Dunya? Gaia, Earth.
Yeah, symbolically. Yeah. You know, they're fighting to, but I don't even know if they, even in the movie, if they considered Dunya to be a consciousness. I don't recall. So it's lacking. Dunya is a consciousness. And, you know, it's like Zion is this place when, you know, the whole planet is place, but I understand, you know, this is where they're hiding out on the planet, you know, doing their thing. And, you know, you get those other sequels with all their machines and their, you know, and one of those things that look like those, no, you know, in the other ones where they, you know, in other words, they load all of this physical stuff. Those guys are walking around in those transformers, you know, and so on and so forth, and so on. They just took that so far away from even the goofs that were made by the Wachowski brothers in the movie, so far away from reality that, you know, you're just watching an action movie. If you think you're getting something out of those movies, I can know what the hell you're getting out of them. I get nothing out of them, other than, okay, yeah, more CGI, oh, more killing, oh, more stress, oh, ups and downs, the light will never cleanly win, you know. Always some guy turning, you know, or Smith gets weird and then he duplicates himself and all this, and then another one where there's a weird guy and they do two parts and so on and so forth. Neo gets blinded and all this. But, you know, it's like, oh, the battle is really, really rough, guys. You sure you want to do it? Because density is feeding this to you, and if you believe any of it, the Matrix got you. So anyway.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start on the project that I last night I wrote something down that means a lot to me. And if you watched any of the like women's forums, there is a mini review that I did on the Matrix whenever we first started and everything was new in terms of NSTHA movie reviews. And when Chief was talking about, there's a lot of symbolism in the Matrix. It's not to be taken literal. It's not to be taken like the Bible or something. But I talk about in the mini review, I said, you know, whenever I watch this movie, these characters, they remind me of someone. And I'm going to explain that to you and why. And I'm going to explain it to you, the clients, because you know personally what I'm talking about. And so I see when in that mini review that I did, I said, you know who reminds me of the Oracle, Morpheus, and Neo all in one? It reminds me of Chief. And I'll explain that to you. So as all of you know who've had sessions, Chief is a master at using his words to poke the density inside of you. You can poke, you know, the insecurity to come to the surface. And he does it in a very gentle way. He does it in a way that works each time for you. And you notice that you'll purge, you'll begin to spit or to cough or to sneeze, or you have to go to the bathroom suddenly. And that's Chief helping you to see what's really under the surface. And he's really masterful at poking whatever that trauma is so that he can pull it out and free you from it. And you all know that, you've experienced it. That's very much like the Oracle and how she says, oh, you're not the one, kid. Sorry about that. But it ended up working in the end. So the same things in just the right technique, that you have to realize the numerous ways you are still believing, the ways that you are still not unplugged from the Matrix, and that how Chief shows you the ways that you are still empowering the system to be able to influence your everyday life. And just like whenever the scene where she tells Neo, you know, about how he, you know, that he is not the one, and that maybe in the next life, and that Morpheus' life is going to be on the line, it made him have to make a choice for himself, had to make him do, you know, make a change. And that is what Chief does whenever he tells you the hard-hitting truth. But he does it in a way that's really savvy. He does it in a way where you don't even recognize that you're ending up going in the right direction. He doesn't telegraph his punches, and he says things that give you an opportunity so that you can make better choices and facilitate the best outcome in your life, just by the simple little suggestions or things that Chief has to tell you. And he has to tell you sometimes really passionately, Because if he tells it to you really softly, sometimes people don't take it seriously, or they don't do what he says. And then whenever I see the symbolism of Chief in Morpheus, it's like Trinity said to Neo, let me give you a piece of advice. Be honest. Because Morpheus, for example, in my opinion, Chief knows more than you could ever imagine. And people, clients who are honest, they're honest with themselves, they're honest with Chief, they're honest with what happened to them in the past, they move further the fastest. But those who hide, those who lie, those who want to show off, those who want to compare, those who want to compete with Chief, they get nothing out of it. They get a little bit further, but they hold themselves back and they want to blame Chief's session? No way. But that's how I see with Morpheus. He's a leader. He's someone that you want to look up to. And you know, I've noticed in all of you that you feel the same way, that every time he has a true logic, you feel it's like right on point, that it hits you right in that spot where you need it. It gives you power to move forward. It helps it and reminds you whenever you're feeling weak, you think of true logic and it helps you and encourages you. That's what I think. That's what I feel. And you know what? In the 10 years that I've known the Chief, it is amazing that I feel like I still don't know the depths of the wisdom that I've been able to observe, that you've been able to observe. And there's definitely people who have looked up to him even in the past. Whenever he was a world-class illustrator, there were people like, man, if you had a movement, I'd follow you. And now he has a movement, so follow Chief. But you know what? The Morpheus character is also patient. He's patient with those who are honest. He's patient with those who are real with him. He's patient with those who are not trying to inflate their ego at the expense of the Chief. And like the Oracle, he knows what to say at key times, especially to those who will listen. So also, you have to, I like the parts where Morpheus, he really knows what to say that will open up the rigidness of the program in the mind. Just like when Morpheus says, he describes in that scene where there's a woman in red, and he says, you have to understand that most of these people are not ready to be unplugged. And many of them are so inured, so accustomed to an unpleasant existence, so hopelessly dependent on the system that they would fight to protect it. Anyone we haven't unplugged is potentially an agent. Chief is always willing to tell you the hard truth, and he knows just when to tell you. So you don't have to ask him, oh, am I ready to know things on the other side? Am I ready to know supernatural things? Am I ready to know about light beings? He knows when you're ready. And I've had to learn over time to trust Chief's intuition. If you will trust Chief's intuition as you are clients or as you're his fans, and you want to listen, you want to read, or you want to absorb all that information, trust his intuition. Because as I've learned to do that, I've healed from trauma. I've healed from the past, and I'm still healing. So also, Chief reminds me and symbolizes for me Neo, because Chief has evolved. He's evolved his way. Because Neo, he didn't come in knowing everything. He had to. Chief says, "I'm my first client," and that amazed me because he had to take himself without a teacher through all the things that he's endured, and he's come so far, and he brought himself to the point of awareness that he has today. To the point that when I'm in sessions, I've been in every single session that Chief has had. And I see now that density, when they realize who he is, they run the fuck away. Because they're afraid. They're afraid of the truth. They're afraid of the true logic. They're afraid of the wisdom that Chief has been able to glean and been able to share with you all as well. So like the Neo character, when he decides, Neo's like, you know what, I'm going to go back into the Matrix. I'm going to go help Morpheus. I feel like this is an important thing to do. And they're like, and even though the Oracle said he wasn't the one, and even though people were like, well, this has never been done before, he says, that's why it's going to work. Chief is daring. He goes through, he will take people on a journey. He goes forward and he moves forward and he doesn't telegraph his punches, and he can change the direction so fast that density doesn't know where he's going or what he's thinking. And another thing that was really interesting is that the Chief is a master at thinking on his feet, and every client is unique. So every client that comes in, he deals with each of them personally. He does it each of them differently. He knows that every person has a different past expression. It's amazing, and it definitely looks difficult. And there's no one that can copy the style, the way, the things that he does, the true logic that he has. They're amazing. And also, during that scene, Neo had to shoot down the security. He had to shoot down those officers. He had to change his tact in everything that he believed in. And Chief was very patient, overly, he was overly considerate. He was so, gentle with clients, and all they did was pay him back with selfishness and manipulation and all kinds of bad behavior. And then Chief was like, you know what? I'm going to change my tact. I'm going to go hardest. I'm going to give no fucks. And that's when people started showing him respect and actually showing appreciation for what he's done. And he deserves all of that. And lastly, Chief is able to see through the matrix. And I feel like Chief is the spearhead. And if you look at the mini review that I did, Chief is the spearhead of this movement. And it is powerful. And if you believe in the true logic, it changes you. And it definitely means a lot to me, because as you know, he just did the bump up for you from here in Thailand to wherever you are in California, in England, in Germany, all these different places, anywhere in the world. He deals with clients all the time who are across the globe, and he's able to transform their lives, and they feel the energy from in their room and from here, right here in the studio. So as I just explained to you, these are the different things that make up what I feel is a symbolism in this movie. And I don't think the weather is going to stop. I don't think the cleansing is going to stop, because change is normal, change is constant, change is natural, change is now. And you know what? If you're a part of this movement, just keep going, keep learning, and see what's happening. Because if you try to predict the future, a lot of people want the Matrix to be real because they want to have the future predicted for them because of fear. Just let it happen, go with the flow. Because no matter what happens, the first stage of enlightenment is realizing that the journey never ends. And with that, Chief, that's the end of the program.
Wow.
Sorry.
Well said. Well said.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss A.
Woo!
Super grateful for you, Chief.
Oh, shit. I feel like crying. I'm sorry. Crying.
Well, I'm speechless.
Well,
Okay.
should we sign off now?
Yeah, I think we'll sign off. Right?
Thank you all for coming.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank
Chief.
you.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you.
Come on, turn off. Okay, Chief, it's not turning off. What do I do? I'll turn off the